Today we're going to continue with decimals, and we're going to be switching back and forth between decimals greater than 1 and mixed numbers. We're going to see how similar and interchangeable they can be. But first, let's take a look at a decimal again. I have 326 up here. 326 is a whole number. That's pretty much what we've been dealing with since we started school. Then we introduced fractions. Fractions were equal parts of a whole or a group. And now we're talking about decimals, and decimals are similar to fractions, as in they are part of a whole or a fractional piece. And all of this stems back to place value. In my number 326, when we studied place value, each digit that makes up the number 326 is in a certain place. The 6 is in the ones place. It represents 6, but it's in the ones place. The 2 is in the tens place, or it represents 20. And the 3 is in the hundreds place, or it represents 300. So that's a whole number. Now I'm going to put in that decimal point, and now I'm going to give you fractional parts, so something that's less than a whole. If I were to put a 2 here, that 2 has a special place. It's the digit 2. The place that it's in is called the tenths place. Similar to 10, but tenths. So it takes 10 of those. It takes 10 in this place to get to 1. So that's the tenths place. So if I were to say that number, I would say 326. The decimal point says and. That's a 2. It's in the tenths place. So it's 326 and 2 tenths. Simple enough. If I were to write that down as a mixed number, which remember that's wholes, 326, and then a fraction is a part of the whole, and I have a 2 there, and it's in the tenths place. Here it is as a decimal greater than a whole, 326 and 2 tenths, and here I write it in mixed number, whole number, fractional part. That's pretty cool. I'm going to add another digit on there. And now this is the tenths place. And just like place value over here, each time I move over, it's 10 times greater. Base 10, 10 times 10 is 100. If I would go one more place, 100 times 10 is 1,000. I'm going to the right, and it keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So 10 times 10 is 100, and this is the hundredths, hundredths, hundredths part. So it takes 100 of these to make one whole. So I would read this number, 326, decimal says and then whatever digits are here, I read them together, 27 hundredths. If I were to write them as a mixed number, 326, 27 100ths. Wow, that's pretty similar. It's quite patterns. Math is all about patterns. Let's take a number that's a little bit smaller, and let's do, so this means I have 6 wholes. My decimal point tells me these are wholes and these are fractional pieces, or it's smaller than a whole. This is the ones place, and then when I start here, this is the tenths place. So it's 6 and 3 tenths, or I would write it 6 and 3 tenths. I'm going to do 3. Now I'm going to put a 0, and I'm going to scoot my 3 over 1. So I still have 3 wholes. My decimal point says and. Now these are less than a whole. Here's my tenths place. Here's my hundredths place. So if I were to read this number, this is 3, but it's in the hundredths place. So I would say this 3 and 3/100ths. Working backwards, I'm going to take this fraction 26 and 14/100ths. Now I take a mixed number and I'm going to turn that into a decimal greater than 1. So I have 26 wholes. Here's my decimal point, and I have 14/100ths. 14/100ths. That's so cool. Let's look at these two. I have 14 wholes. My decimal says and 12. Here's the tenths. Here's the hundredths. So it's 14 and 12/100ths. Let's look here. I have 30 wholes. Decimal says and I just have a 3 here. That 3 happens to be in the tenths place, in 3/10. Now I have no wholes. So in order to transfer that into a fraction, it wouldn't be a mixed number because I have no wholes. I read this. Here's the tenths, here's the hundredths. 17/100ths. They're so interchangeable. You can go back and forth. Just knowing that each digit has a place. That place gives it value. The tenths place, the hundredths place. The tenths place, there's no hundredths. The tenths place, the hundredths place. Anything to the right of the decimal point is much like a fraction. It's less than a whole. The further I go away from the decimal point, the smaller the number. Just like in fractions, I'm dividing it into more parts. But with decimals, each spot over is 10 times smaller. Tenths, hundredths, and if I went one more time over, 100 times 10, that would be the thousandths place. So I could even have a decimal here's my decimal point, then I have 216 tenths, hundredths, thousandths. I would say that 4 and, then I would read those together, 216 thousandths. As a mixed number, 4, 216 thousandths. There you have it. Math is patterns.